good. I've read it out here already.
All right, so we want to call the meeting to order, everybody, and we'll start. Ted, you mind doing the invocation for us?
No. You ready now?
Yep.
All right. Bow our heads. Lord, we thank you for this day. I thank you for everybody's here and their desire to make our city better. And just ask that you guide our discussions and that we glorify you in our efforts. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We got approval of March minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to look over those minutes?
March 2nd.
March 2nd meeting. We actually had two meetings, so we'll approve the March 2nd meeting, and then we'll go and ask for approval of the work session on the 16th.
Mayor, that's correct. The minutes say March 2nd was a work session, March 16th was a meeting. I don't know why we said March 2nd was a work session, but that's what the minutes reflect. So
Okay, all right, so
I don't care.
So what we'll do is we'll just ask for any amendments, and we'll make sure that that's added.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just amend it. Okay, need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, we're moving properly second. Any motion to amend?
It's on March 2nd.
Yes, sir. All right. No. Okay, all right, all in favor?
Do you want it to be?
But maybe
Which one is that?
I don't know why the March 16th said March 2nd was a work session rather than a meeting, and I don't know if it makes any difference.
Yeah, on the agenda it says meeting minutes, and then the second number 4 asks for approval of the March work session meetings minutes. So we just make sure that the record reflects that there's that March 2nd is minutes and not work session, and the 16th was an actual work session. Okay. All right. All in favor
On March 2nd.
of March 2nd?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries unanimously. Approval of March work session meeting minutes. Any?
I got a question on, if you want to motion.
Let's get it on. Yes.
I move with that, and then I got
All right. We got a motion.
Change.
Need a second?
Second.
All right. We're moving properly second. All right. Discussion.
Oh, yeah, all I wanted to add was that Michael Werner drove, and I made notes while we drove around precinct 4. He didn't get memorialized in the minutes as the driver.
Where is it?
Yeah, that's very important considering I was driving in the potholes.
It was pouring down rain when we did our inspection, so.
Well, is this saying that you did that before the March 16th?
No, we just said
We
that
made
we
the
were going
proposal
Oh, you did it.
to do it, and we did.
We did.
Over on, Mayor, on the second page, to be real honest, the two motions that didn't carry, I can't repeat even what we did then, so I'm not telling whether they were right or not. But on the motion that did carry, I think there's two things missing from that motion. One is that the motion was if the streets above 300, if the street was 300 below and marked in yellow red was half of it. The other half of that was the streets that had been added that were in gray on that list we were looking at would be rated, and if they were 300 below, then they would also be done.
That's right.
And I don't think that's reflected in this statement.
Okay, you're right. So want to state that as an amendment?
The amendment would be, after the first sentence, that we had the sentence that says, all streets that were marked in gray, if I remember the color, all streets that were marked in gray would be rated by the city prior to starting working those boards. And if they were 300 below, they would be included also.
Yep. All right. Second? Second. All right. Then moving properly second. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
All right.
One more. I think in that
Motion
same,
carries. All right.
in that same discussion, we took out that what is referenced in an earlier statement, in earlier planning, we took out a keeping ward by ward the same number of miles that we were going to do based on the rating rather than by the ward for that particular section of the project. and that was part of the motion.
I don't know, I don't remember.
In that,
So I couldn't
in that
remember.
discussion, we talked about.
I mean, I remember the discussion.
I
didn't
think
know
for
if there
two,
was-
everything was 495 and above, and we said, we talked about the other things that we spend money on for sewer and storm drainage, and that dollar-wise, it might bounce by more, but miles by miles.
Yeah, I remember, I just can't validate if we did it as a motion or not, but I remember us, that being a consensus that it didn't.
That was maybe, you know, it doesn't have to be in that, it's just a consensus. Earlier over here on page 1, we talk about one of the criteria was that we do it the same number of miles by board. And that decision we made when we got in that motion was that for this orange cone, whatever, Operation Orange Cone, that wasn't going to be a criteria because it was going to be the priority, the 300 below was the criteria, not the number of miles per board. And I don't care if you put it in that part of the motion, or just that there was a consensus agreement that earlier criteria wouldn't be there. But
All
otherwise,
right, we'll just have to add it to the minutes, so that the minutes.
add the minutes and reflect it however you want to.
Okay, all right, we need a second on that amendment.
I second it, that it ends up as a consensus.
All right, moving properly second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, back to the original motion as amended twice, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, all opposed, none. All right, motion carries. All right, now we're down to status update on year 1 projects. Ms. Reddick?
We can do it next slide. Part of, yeah. So, part of this meeting, we also created another package for April. In this package that you all have received, it should include the status update of expenditures by category, variance report showing what is going on for each project, and then the design consultant's project status that we can talk through, along with Operation Orange Cone neighborhood streets, Operation Orange Cone major streets, Operation Orange Cone spot repair. We discussed having a pothole turn bin. That's a part of this package. And then a list of all the City of Jackson streets, which was requested in the previous meeting. Going to the funds that have been spent thus far, the encumbered amount or committed funds is still at $3.3 million. And there was a $30,000 increase for water line replacement. So that's what's been expended for the month of April, through April 6, 2016.
Through April, we spent 121, but through March, we spent 161.
Yeah, that was because there was an a error in the last presentation where the encumbered $54,000 for the Hanging Moss Bridge was noted as an expended amount when really it was just an encumbered amount.
So the 161 was the wrong number, the 121 is correct.
Yes.
And the difference is the Hanging Moss, 54,000 on the
Yeah.
bridge.
So that was an encumbered. So we
All right.
Keep going. The revenues year to date is $26.9 million. The budget that we've approved thus far is $15.1 million. Our revenues in contingency are $11.7 million. And what was approved as of March 16th, we had $9.2 million to go towards neighborhood street resurfacing, and then there was a request for up to $4 million to be used towards pothole repair.
And that's not in the 15 million.
No, neither one of those are in the 15 million, or within that 15 million. I had Robbie Jones here to kind of discuss, because both of these numbers would be more than what we have in contingency. I wanted her to kind of discuss where we are with getting extra funding from JP Morgan, or what our plan is for financing the project.
But hadn't we put in the budget 15 plus 13? We put in 15 a year ago, and last
13.
meeting we put in 13 million.
So we put in
13 a year ago and 15.
We put in 13 million a year ago as of May of 2015, and then we added
2 million for the
yes, for the Tiger Grant, yes.
And so during 2015, we did $15 million. That's that. That's the $13 million we did in May plus the $2 million for the Tiger Grant.
Yes.
But we've approved $13 more million. You can't spend it because you ain't got it all, but we've approved $13 million.
Yes.
Yeah. But wouldn't you say, but doesn't the CIP budget right now include $28 million? Because if we've approved it, why is it not in the CIP budget?
So what I wanted Robbie to talk about is our financing plan, because we have approved this $13.2 million. If we only have $11.7 million in contingency, wanted her to discuss where we are with JP Morgan as far as how we're going to finance.
I don't care about JP Morgan because I'm not prepared right now to vote on JP Morgan with no more information, but we have already voted $28 million. We've collected $27 million.
Yes.
And we know we'll collect some more this month. So, and it's up to $4 million. We don't have to spend $4 million. I'm just saying that the CIP budget right now is $28 million because that's what we have voted on this commission to approve.
Yes.
Without JP Morgan or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
CIP budget is $28 million. With up to $4 million, might only be $3 million. If we don't collect another penny on the sales tax, it can't go to $3 million because we don't have it. $26,900,000, which we know by the time you spend it, we'll have another $1 million. I just wonder why the CIP budget's not $28 million. We voted to do it, even if we might not spend all of it, because some of these things where they're 4 times what we originally budgeted, we might decide to back off of. That's later discussion.
You lost me on the 28, I can see where you.
15.2 plus 13.2.
At the bottom.
Add the 9 and 4 is 13. Yeah. I'm just saying the 15 that we approved in 2015 and last month we approved 13.2. That to me adds up to $28 million.
I think what you're communicating, Lacey, is that the year 1 CIP budget was approved at ultimately was approved at $15.2 million. Is that not right? The neighborhood streets and the pothole repair were in year 2. So those were approved, so we can revise the slide or revise the record to show what is the total
CIP budget at this point is the total CIP budget at this point is $28 million.
Right.
Without talking to JP Morgan, it's $28 million because that's what we approved.
Right.
Okay.
So that 15.2 million is year 1 projects. So that should be clarified.
How about that?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. And if this needs to be revised again before this is sent out to the board, I can do that. But I wanted to have Robbie Jones kind of speak on where we are with JP Morgan financing, because that'll come up later on in the presentation when we discuss how we're going to finance our other year 1 projects.
Well, wait. Before we get there, I got an awful lot of old business on the category about. I want to talk about these before I talk about financing. I want to know whether we still want to do them at the cost that it's costing us now to do them. Because if we live at these costs as they are right now, we got the next 5 years already spent and nothing else to spend anything on because of the way these things are running over the budget. So before we go talk about borrowing money, because I'm not prepared to talk about borrowing money right now, I'd like to hear a presentation. But there's an awful lot of questions to be answered that were left over from May of last year. And so that's why I want to put this on the old business. Before we get into where we're going, can we still take something we budgeted $130,000, but now it's going to cost $520,000, and you plan on going to the city council with it? We had approved spending an extra $350,000 on that project. And last year when we approved that project, we thought it was $130,000. Now the total construction is 3 times what we thought it was. That might not be the same priority now. We were told last year, do this, and next year we'll have a master plan. But now we've already spent 5 years worth of money right there if we live with these. So before we get into, let's go borrow a bunch of money to do what we've already approved, let's decide if what we approved makes any sense anymore.
Okay.
Okay, what are those that you've identified?
Everything. Let's start from the top. This list I just got yesterday. It says drainage, Beechcrest Drive. We approved the budget of $136,000. Right now, the proposed cost is $519,194. And the total construction cost is $1,452,000. I'm going to round off numbers here.
Well, later on in the slide, I mean, I haven't printed out slide. The priority for drainage projects is actually in the PowerPoint presentation. If you want to use that as a basis.
Well, we
what
can
our
go to
projects-
that if you want to before we get talking about borrowing money.
Okay.
I mean, before we get into talking about borrowing money, I'd like to see where we are with what we're doing right now. Because and we still hadn't issued a contract for any of these. And it's a year later, we still don't have a contract, so why the hell do we need to borrow money right now? We can't even get a contract to hire an engineer in place. And it's not
I think
because,
we got it.
wait,
I think we've got it.
not according to the list I sent yesterday.
Brook Hollow Circle is under contract.
Well, Brook Hollow might be, but I'm talking about a lot of these. And it's not because this commission got oversight and that's why it's delayed, and it's not because Pete Perry is trying to get contracts for so-and-so, as was told at the town hall meeting. It's
I
called.
said in here, because you did say it to me.
I
I
said-
ain't gotta say it in
No,
the town
excuse me.
hall meeting.
No, we said it after meeting. I asked you why
Well,
that,
you said it,
I asked why we went, that contract.
and I'll say it in here.
Oh, wait,
You said it.
can I finish before you interrupt?
Well,
Did
you
say-
addressed me.
Yes, I did, because I have not had any input on any of these and don't want any input on who you're hiring or where.
You
No,
know,
no.
today
No, I hadn't all along. The only question I raised with you one time there
was,
it was after a meeting, I said, why are you putting a 25% for having your corporate office located in Jackson for the program management job?
and what
Now,
company did you bring up?
Wait, let me finish. You brought it up now. Wait.
Well, if you wanna talk about it, talk about all of it.
I'm trying to, if you quit interrupting. If you'll let me finish, I will talk about it. I'll
Finish.
say, okay. I asked why we had a 25% out of 100 points, 25 points out of 100 for having your corporate office in Jackson on the program management contract, not on any of the rest of them. Why on that one, because that was the only one that had an RFP out at the time. And you said Yates Construction, I said, yeah, Yates called me about it. You're the one that brought it up, because they also called you.
Because I ain't new to this.
Yep. And I agreed, and I said, okay, but their office is here. And you said they could partner with somebody, and I said they can also move. I don't care. You left it like that, and you awarded to somebody, and that's fine. But on all the rest of these, on no other contract,
If that's what you wanna talk about, you could talk to me about that after this meeting. or
No, wait,
before.
no, that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about why is it going from 136 to 520.
Well, talk about that.
And it still doesn't have a contract in it. And it's not
Well,
because,
talk about that.
okay, and it's not because I don't even know who BK is or what they're doing. I hadn't talked about any of the other contracts. I did ask about corporate headquarters, but wasn't trying to get a contract for anybody. We were just talking about the general philosophy. But until we see it, and if you got another slide, I'd do that. But before we get into talking about borrowed money, I want to know, I didn't commit to $520,000 for Beach Crest or $390,000 for North Canton Club or any of these other numbers that are on here. And because of what that does over here, the total cost, we've gone way deep, and I know that plenty of other people like to see some drainage done. We ain't gonna have any money for drainage for the next 4 or 5 years, even if we borrow money at these costs. And the folks whose houses flooded last week didn't get included, because we're gonna deal with that once we got a master plan done. Last year, we were gonna do these because that's what we already know.
Well, would you like to address that? But I just want to say for the record, I ain't call your name out at the meeting, but apparently somebody who told you knew it was you.
I was told you call my name out. We'll go to the videotape and see.
Go ahead.
Because I think we clearly stated that, number one, we were, for year one, we were budgeting just design costs. What were the estimates for design costs? We also included and have put into year two estimates of construction costs. Now that engineers have reviewed the projects and more damage has been done, or they have identified additional issues in the field that need to be addressed, that increased the estimated construction costs as well as some of the design, and not all of them have increased. We also talked about at the last meeting prioritizing the drainage projects that were approved to move forward with the critical drainage projects because of the increases in budget. We also talked about the fact that the master plans that we were working from with the projects were dated and did not have updated cost information, and there wasn't enough budget for what the city paid for to pull this information together for there to be a whole lot of field assessment. So now that we have costs that have been reviewed, and those are the estimates, I believe we said that we will come back with a list of what we believe should be prioritized, and we can talk through that list. But going back to the very initial discussions about the sales tax, what we're bringing in a year is not substantial enough to do any amount of improvements short of leveraging the funds, period. And it's not the only city that's using a municipal option sales tax as leverage money. There's cities that are using municipal option sales tax to do nothing but pay debt service. So, and as far as the master plan, we presented a 76-page document which you ripped apart, wasn't substantial, and because you wanted to state how the city should be prioritizing its overall infrastructure improvement plans, we took that part out and presented capital projects for approval, because the legislation does not say what has to be included in a master plan document. It simply said how the money should be used and how projects should be prioritized, and we have demonstrated that.
Dwayne?
I just want to say, I think, I hear what both of you are saying, but the crux of it is, to me, you can both be right. But the problem is that these numbers, just for the drainage alone, came in on the engineering at nearly $1.7 million. So at $1.7 million for that, and then we can look at the ones on the bottom too and add those up, and that gets to be a lot of money. So I think on what Pete is saying, I think we have to go back, and you said prioritize.
Yeah.
That's basically the same thing. I think that's where I was coming from.
And that's what I'm saying.
We got to figure out which ones and what.
Well, you can,
Wait a minute, and I understand you were dealing with some old numbers, old figures and whatever, and the estimates are hard to make estimates. I understand all that, and I agree with that. I recognize that the city is working with dated information and lack of good information, and things get worse as time goes on. I don't have a problem with that, but all we did was deal with engineering, which is what Dwayne just said. But the engineering went up 3 times, and the project has got to be bigger.
Then we
Because
may have to take some out.
that's right, I understand. But that's kind of where we talked from last time. Now, if you want to go to legislation, what that I told, I put it right before, I said what we had before was a list of projects that wasn't a master plan. And the legislation says the commission draws one up, not the city. The city drew that up, and the commission had very little or no input into it. But that's what passed that year one. My question still is, I mean, I passed that, I'm not going to go back there, you were the one who brought it up, and
You just said it 5 seconds ago, Pete.
I said we still don't have it.
Can we go through the
What we
list
have
of
agreed
projects?
with, what we have agreed on is that we need to prioritize based on new numbers. So that's what we are, and I think we can start at the prioritization right now.
Pete, you need to get one of these.
yeah,
They
this
just
is,
handed this
so I
out.
think this kind of goes to what we're having this argument or discussion about. So we've already prioritized our drainage projects, and this is the order in which they were prioritized and the criteria used to prioritize those projects. So as a board, you can discuss, which ones do we want to, where do we cut the line? So if we don't want to finance all 14, where do we cut, which ones we're going to prioritize versus which we aren't? And the 4 criteria used, or criterion used, project as a component or prerequisite for another project, flooding problems or access issues, impact on major streets, and then erosion control issues and no major flooding. So those are the 4 criteria used. These were the scores that each of these drainage projects scored, and then also the cost. So if you want to kind of discuss which one should we look at now that we know the revised pricing, I think we can look at this list in order of what's the most important. We definitely want to do our Eubanks Creek, Forest Avenue, and Northside Drive. But if there's some points that we want to cut this off, I think we can discuss that now.
Can I ask just an understanding question?
Mhm.
All right, this shows the year 1 project construction. Do we have somewhere easily available what we had in the budget in 2015?
So that's going to be in your package
All
here.
right, well, that's what I was just looking for. I think it's in there, but just.
So that's going to be under Design Consultants Project Status, which was also emailed. It'll be the third document
Now,
after
but
your
that
staff report.
What you emailed doesn't show what was,
Approved. So it says year one approved budget.
I wanna know what was assumed to be the construction when we approved that budget. When we approved 136,000 year one approved budget, and right now it's proposed at 519,000, that's still for design. I wanna know, in year one approved budget, what we estimated the cost for that construction was gonna be.
Okay, that was a part of the March package. That's not in this package right
So we
here.
don't, okay.
I can send out the
mean, it would
field
be-
numbers.
I wanna know,
You sent it out in March?
Yeah, so that was, so we went through, the budget. So this was all a part of the March package.
Okay, we sent the March back.
Okay,
okay, but the 2 point, well, let's, Eubanks is a different deal. Go to Forest Avenue, right now we're saying year one construction estimate is $1,018,000. We're saying that the Forest Hill, the engineering went from 122 to 458.
that's for PE and CNI.
Yeah, but this, I wanna know, okay, we originally had 122 for engineering and X for construction. If that was 500,000, it's one thing, if that was $1 million, it's another thing. If it's 500,000, we're now putting another $500,000 in that project. If it was $1 million at that time total, we were right at the same kind of number. I just wanna know what we looked at a year ago for that project.
Okay, so,
Because I want to compare this number, this year one project construction number, to what we thought,
Which,
for everything we did,
Oh,
for everything we did.
can we go project by
Yeah,
project?
absolutely. That's what I'd like to do.
To talk about what's included in the scope and where the differences were for each project.
I think originally we looked at, on the drainage, basically area map, what we thought needed to be improvements. We've had previous drainage studies, 301 data, and just complaints from the general public. Taking into account, we came up with limited footage. As we started negotiating with the consultants, all of the consultants wanted to go out and verify exactly what their scope is going to be. So they got boots on the ground, walk the area, determine, we really can't provide a service on this area without impacting this area. So there was an increase in the linear footage. And also too, that would increase the design costs and construction engineering costs. Also, so the prices that you see now reflect a more comprehensive approach of how we need to address the issues. We don't want to do a project downstream that would impact upstream. We don't want to do a project upstream that would impact downstream. So once again, we took a whole comprehensive look of what needed to be done, provided that in a scope, and then we generated pricing. Typically, in the negotiation process, help finance, we narrow down areas where we really need to concentrate. A lot of that was in the surveying. So a lot of the broke down is 30%, 60%, and 90% stages. So in 30%, they'll provide us with a general overview of what's needed based on that scope. From there, we'll generate mitigation strategies in order to address the drainage problems that are out there. There's erosion, flood control, that's notifying all the federal agencies that are involved as far as jurisdictional waters. And then when we get at 6%, we'll know. We'll know what the price, we'll know what we're doing, the people that will be affected, the number of temporary easements that will be involved. And then we'll generate a price from there, and then we'll supplement that with a CNI. So some of those costs may go down, but what you see reflects what is needed out there.
Point of clarification, so this sheet that we handed out, the new one, those year one construction costs are the present date. Those are up to date. What Pete was asking for was the previous estimate on it.
yeah.
So, but that's what also showed up. So this, what we have on this is what showed up on your mail out yesterday.
Yeah, this is from the mail yesterday.
Okay. So that, I just want to make sure everyone's understands the same thing.
Which,
This one.
That,
yeah, that kind of pronounced, that big sheet, okay.
But, yeah, oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, because
But yes, this is the same one.
we showed where the engineering and design went up, but we, on your graph there, that we didn't, we just took the new figure for the construction, and that was it. So I just want to make sure that that's something different there.
You're saying for this right here, yes?
Yes.
This is just construction costs, which is the same which is in the handout. I think we use the construction cost so that you know, as we're putting a priority number,
Gotcha.
how much that's gonna be construction
That's
for.
the current one that we
Yeah.
have.
Yes.
I guess, Pete, let me just ask one other question, just this is too simplistic, I know, but just moving us along, and then everybody can chime in while I'm wrong. If we were looking at the fact that the design and engineering work is on all those projects ends up being about $1.6 million, over $1.6 million, $6.4 million, whatever. And then you look down the way you prioritize these, with 7 being the least priority out of this group. You have one in there that's $1.4 million. So again, I'm not trying to pick on anybody's project, I don't know that particular project, but we're just about back to square one when we look at that one project. Is that, am I understanding that right?
I think you're so what you're saying is, because we're a little bit over $1 million over, if we take out the last project, Beachcrest Drive, we would be kind of back at where we wanted to
We
be.
would not be, we would be as far as the professional services go, but if the construction costs went up like the professional did, we're gonna be over
I
there.
understand, but we don't have any new construction figures as well.
That's what I fixed to ask. Does this column right here, is this revised construction cost, or is that?
Yeah. This is revised construction costs. This is as
Okay.
of today.
Can you tell us, because none of us seem to have it here, what, when we did this in April, in 2015,
What was the projected construction?
what was the projected construction cost for all the ones we did?
And I'll send that information out. I don't
So
know.
if we don't have it here, it's hard to make a decision here today, but that's, okay.
For just drainage or
Well,
overall?
If we're gonna deal with bad drainage, if we're gonna reduce the drainage, I mean, I think it's important, both for drainage and for, but I'd like it project by project, which is kind of what I asked for in my email. Because, you know, tell me where we are with all these things. This is nice about where we are with A&E, but if I'm looking at, and it's one that you said, the bottom of Beachcrest Drive, going up from 130 to 520, I'm wondering if the construction cost went up 3 times as much too. And it's not fair to assume that it was 3 times as much, but it certainly is fair to assume it was an increase. And so, and not all of them increased, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 12 had dramatic increases. And I understand why they have it. Charles, I'm not saying, I understand why you can have the increase. But my concern now is, okay, with that increase,
How does it affect?
how does it affect our overall program?
Yeah.
Because when we selected these, we said that some others need to, let's go ahead and get these. Well, that kind of budget number is okay, but if these are gonna eat up all the money, you know, some of these folks that got skipped along the way because we didn't have information on them ought to be, or might be done cheaper for a better benefit.
So with this prioritization that we have in front of us, I think we can move forward with making a determination on what stays or what doesn't, based on what we have and what we know we got to get done. So with that being said, I think the way to proceed at this point is I think we could talk about, in terms of a budget conversation, what do we actually have budgeted? And which of these projects, including the revisions, will fit in that particular budget? Otherwise, the conversation doesn't really move much. So I want to move it by having a conversation about what projects at this point will fit in a budget that we have currently. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think to kind of go.
It does. If I could ask one thing, on this priority, where, on this list where they are prioritized, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding what I'm reading here right. Eubank Street, I think number 1, we're already moving along on Eubank Street, aren't we? I mean, we've approved that, and it's on, it's, obviously it's another one. So then the 2, 3, 4, I'd like a little bit of discussion from somebody that knows something about those projects. What causes Forest Avenue to Northside Drive, and I don't know where that is or what it is, what causes that to be a priority number 2? I don't want to argue with that, I'd just like to know.
Yeah, so I think that's what the plan is. What we can do, since it's already been prioritized, and this just me and my 3rd grade teaching coming out. We start at priority 1 and we go all the way until we're out of money. All right, just in terms of a conversation. And we get a detailed understanding of what goes into these projects and what the impacts are, in addition to the criteria and explanation that we have on the right-hand side. So let's start at the first project, A.B. Banks Creek.
Okay, and Charles, did you want to?
Can you just go through each project and explain?
Right. Let's start at Eubanks Creek.
Okay, Eubanks Creek is a project that is basically off of State Street, Choctaw area. And there's 2 things. That project will tackle a bridge replacement that will help with the Tiger Grant, and also hopefully reduce some flooding issues that are currently the residents on Choctaw Road are experiencing. So the priority is to reduce flooding so we can stop the repetitive claims, and also to, that what will coincide with that will be the bridge replacement that will help with that. The second project, Forest Avenue to Northside Drive, which is in Ward 2, off of Kirkley Drive and Forest Avenue. That is Eubanks Creek Trip 6. We have roughly over 50 residents that are affected by that particular project, and we're hoping to improve the capacity. We have some areas on Kirkley Drive that are experiencing flooding, so that project is more for capacity, and it will also improve the community over there, or quality of life. Woodhill Road and Beasley Road pretty much is in the same state. It's in Ward 2. It also has about 30 to 40 residents that are affected. Very limited capacity. They have experienced some flash flooding due to those capacity issues, and also too, we'll have some upgrades in regards to the stormwater culvert. The Woodrow Wilson to Erie Street, which is in Ward 3. Erie Street is over off Woodrow Wilson going back west. Derrick Street, as you go toward the near.
Okay.
Yes. That particular area, same, roughly 25 to 30 residents that are experiencing flooding, a lot of soil erosion, where a lot of property loss, and it will be a valuable community life improvement for the community. The George Washington area, which is in Presidential Hills, which is also in Ward 2, they have capacity issues in regards to the storm lines and limited capacity in regards to the existing ditches. When the area was developed in the early 60s to 70s, they utilized primarily the one particular channel, which was the Bovachita, for drainage, and they had very limited drainage areas that were located behind most of the residents' homes. And so you can imagine over a period of years the amount of siltation, dirt, debris that has limited the channel. So the improvements both in the city's right-of-way and in the rear yards will definitely be community improvement, life-changing improvement for the residents, and also the increased capacity and limited flash flooding. The Woodrow Wilson to Riverside Drive, this area will tackle looking at the problems that are most of the Belhaven residents are experiencing around the St. Mary, St. Anne area. They will look at the existing capacity of the channel, also look at the upper drainage channel around the stadium, what UMC contributes, and how much is actually discharging. We are going to utilize a lot of USGS data that they have available due to they have a meter located on Laurel Park. If you notice, I don't know if you saw the news, but I've got the video, but like last week, we had a minimum amount of rain, and the actual area jumped up from like 2 feet to 7 feet in a matter of an hour. So
I thought this project didn't affect where that happened. Does this project affect where that?
we're looking at it from a comprehensive.
Because it
national
affects
isolation.
downstream of there, it
That's
will
correct.
affect here.
That's correct.
Because where, this actual project is south, is north and east of there, but it would affect where that was on the news the other day.
Yes.
Okay.
Oakmont, that is off of Robinson. That is in Mr. Tillman's Ward, Ward 5. The city had done a job back in the early 80s using some SCS money and kind of stopped. And there's an area on Oakmont that goes to Primos Drive that the residents have been experiencing a lot of flooding, flash flooding issues, soil erosion. So that will be a benefit to them. The North Kent Club, that's over off of Old Kent Road to the east going toward the river. Once again, limited capacity. Some of the storm lines need to be upgraded. Hopefully we'll reduce some of the flash flooding and a lot of through on calls that Mr. Lee gets. The McDowell Road to Cooper Road, that is Caney Creek. And it has some, the evaluation will look at it from a capacity and some soil erosion, but there are some existing riprap in the channel, so that's why it's got a lower priority.
Which end, on McDowell to
That's
Cooper?
McDowell to Cooper.
So that's got
Going back.
riprap? Or are you talking about on the other
Some,
side?
right, some in limited areas. But the evaluation,
McDowell and Cooper parallel each other.
that's
Is
correct.
that on the west end or the east end of McDowell?
Well, if you look at the bridge of McDowell going, you'd be going south to get to Cooper. And that,
Yeah, but I mean, it's, the creek's going south,
It's on the west end.
it's on the west end, thank you, Mayor. That's what I was, you know what I was, you asked me the same thing, I think.
It's on the west.
It's more on the west
It's on the
side,
west end,
on
yeah.
on the
'Cause
Ring Road
other
side rather than the Terry Road
Yeah,
side.
the other side was done at some point, what, 80s or 90s?
yes.
All right, before you move, okay, just in terms of calculating. At McDowell Road, we are now at $12,627,952. So if we do from priority 1 down to McDowell Road, we're at $12,627,952.
Is that construction plus engineering?
I'm just,
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
I just did construction. Yeah, I'm just doing construction, because I'm just doing the construction cost, so you can see where we are. We're talking about prioritizing and making decisions. All right, Charles.
Okay. We're in Grove Park, which is a city-owned facility. They have a lot of ball fields that back up to Town Creek Trip 4. And wanted to look at doing some erosion control issues there.
Does that affect residents of the city park?
It's on city property. So it only affects maybe 3 or 4 residents who actually are off Park Lady.
Yeah, okay. I thought I knew where it was, yes, I did.
Lakeshore Road to Heritage Place is in Ward 6. Once again, that it doesn't affect as many residents, but the residents who are affected by a particular channel do experience some flooding sometimes. But we have tried to regularly keep it maintained, keeping the debris and blockages out of it. So that's why you see it at a lower priority compared to the other channels. The Belmont Street to Piedmont Street, that's the other leg that come off the Riverside. But the reason, we feel that if we address the issue from Woodrow Wilson to Riverside, the impact from that should provide us a little bit more time to see what the effects of Piedmont to Belmont Street is. There's an existing box that comes through there, and it kind of stops and opens up, and it's very narrow. But we don't think that the water that's contributed from that particular drainage area has much of an impact as it does coming up from the stadium. And Beechcrest Drive, is on Purple Creek, that's Ward 1, and most of that is stabilization.